Well, that if they were well enough, they had to go in. So I didn't like to keep them home from school. So yes, if they weren't sick, so the school wouldn't take them if they were actually sick. But if they weren't sick, they'd have to go in.
I think it's best to absolutely limit any form of sick day unless it is a genuine medical issue, because ultimately I want the children to grow up resilient and able to handle pressure, not to treat life as a burden, but to treat it as something that they can find ways to overcome issues. And so sick days are ideally absolute minimum.
I know from my colleagues at work that they never have enough days for the amount of time that their kids are sick. So that does kind of worry me in the future as to how that all adds up.
If they're well enough, go to school, then you have to kind of figure out genuinely how well they are or not so well. We stress the importance of being a family that can trust one another.
Be very careful and be very attentive in our kids' lives. So my role will be, that's not something just in very strict borders, just to be intuitive and listen to a kid.
Actually physically ill or diarrhea.
I've heard anything from, like, if they've got a runny nose, that they're on a stand down, or the more obvious ones are like if they've had a tummy bug, they're not allowed back at daycare for like 3 days sometimes. So seems like quite a lot.
Death's door.
I think if they're in a position where they think, if I were to go to school, I'm too distracted by my own body difficulties that I wouldn't be able to properly concentrate or actually let any information sink in an effective way. Plus, being at home in bed will help them get over the illness more quickly. So it sort of makes sense that they should stay home so they can be fresh-minded for school later.
In case if they have temperature, there is some physical condition and there is also some mental condition, because sometimes kids can be upset or so that's not something, that's not running nose, but there is also maybe the trigger to something very important.
No, tired doesn't work. That's no good. They have to go in if they're tired.
You'd want to have some grace around that, right? Like you do for yourself. But if you've used all your days when they're sick, or you've been told that they're not allowed to be sick, then they're not allowed to be in because they've been sick 3 days ago. I don't know how you work that out in terms of the time, but we all have those days, and I would like to think that we're just exhausted, that you give your kids some time off.
Probably in the early days of school, particularly the first year, then and everything's new for your really little one. Sometimes you can just see they're so tired that they possibly could become unwell if they didn't just have a bit of rest at home.
If they kind of a little bit, can be a little bit cunning, it just don't want to skip the school. That's the one situation. And so, there also needs to be the discipline. But tiredness, there's also there's going to be a problem with anxiety or with the depression.
One of us has to remain present in the house, unless it was the oldest boy, but any of our other kids, and we've got 3 others. So if one of them was ill, one of us would have to remain at home. So it would be, I wouldn't allow games and TV, but I would expect them to, peacefully recover and not feel like they've got to lie in bed the whole time.
It was difficult because I worked full time, so you had to try and either get a grandparent to step in or try and work from home. So it depended upon whether I had meetings and things on, so it varied as to what was in the diary. But if I couldn't be at home and work from home, then it would mean grandparents stepping in.
But actually today I'm on the sick day because my kid, he's like 11 months old and he's got the temperature, running nose, conjunctivitis and other conditions. So I called this morning to my employer, write an email, I said that I can't be fully present at work. I can take some phone calls, but I need to be today with my son.